Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate, and I am honored to be having with me over the program for tonight Dr. Sherif Amer. Dr. Sherif, we're speaking about the African tour conducted by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in the past week. And of course, Angola is a historic visit, the first for an Egyptian president. What is the significance of visiting Angola at this time and meeting, of course, the Angolan president?
Angola went through huge civil war, one of the most devastating civil wars in the history of Africa.
Yes.
It was a communist country also. It was a hub of arms trade, illegal traffickings. It was a devastated country by all means. If you look at the map, the president used to choose the countries who are at ground zero, if we can call it like that, failed states, and he chose to visit these countries who are rising again. Now Angola is living a new era. They are trying to emerge as economy. Angola is very rich in oil and very rich in minerals. So it was always this focus of all the Western and external powers to make wars there, to control, as it was happening now, is happening now in Sudan, the mines, the oil fields, and all that. So it has riches. So the president is focusing on these rich countries who were crushed by all the interests of external powers, and offering them internal help, which is Pan-African work. And this is why he chose now Angola. It's a rich country. It's a country who needs help from inside the continent. It's a country who is willing to offer lots to the other countries. We could have other projects in Angola as we have it in Tanzania and in Congo and in South Sudan. We can have projects there. It will help our economy. So it's a win-win relationship. I think that the president is focusing on the economic level, that if we help each other economically, I think that all the obstacles, security, healthcare, political obstacles could be overcome easily.
Doctor, you mentioned the importance of building dams, for example, like in Tanzania, the Julius Nyerere Dam, which was mentioned exclusively by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, specifically during the summit of the COMESA. What is the importance of showing the world and showing the Africans that we intend to be having mutual benefits? We need to be having better infrastructure for the benefit of the whole of the African continent, not just for the benefit of Egypt.
It shows that there is a new face for Egypt. We, unfortunately, decades ago, we didn't show this. We didn't show that we are close to the African countries. Now they're happy to see that we are telling them our interests, our foreign interests. It's not only Europe and the United States. Our interest is inside the continent. The first time they see the Egyptian president speaking to them from the heart and telling them that we could be real brothers on the ground, we could work together, and always they had this respect and love for Egypt. They never had any negative sentiment towards Egypt. So they are happy that Egypt is now taking care of them, offering help, offering expertise. They are welcoming this again, that the fact that the president is not giving only words, that the projects are concrete. They can see it in Tanzania, in Congo.
Yes.
For example, in South Sudan, no one dared to go to this country to build any medical institution. We built it there. We helped also our friends and brothers in Somalia, which is a very devastated country. We don't work on instigating conflicts between the factions. We are always mending fences. We are always bringing them together. And we gave the example in South Sudan. They came to Egypt, the whole tribal factions. They spoke together, as we did with the Libyans, as we did with the Sudanese. They can come to Cairo. They solve their problems here. So the president is giving them concrete examples that we're not just giving slogans. It's real. It could happen. And it will happen if we are able, all of us, to take it seriously and be aware that the world is changing.
Speaking of investments, potential investments from the Egyptian public sector and the private sector as well into Africa and vice versa, how do you see the importance of not just pushing the Egyptian investors into Africa, but attracting them into the African markets?
This also had a special effort because unfortunately many of the investors used to see that the Western Hemisphere is the only way to make money. Let's be frank, the private sector is about interest and about money. And if our foreign affairs vision is about restructuring our policies inside the continent, we will transmit this idea to the businessmen, to the investors, telling them, when you go to an African country, in this country, Egypt has strong relations in there. We have good facilities there. When they know that you're an investor, you could have an Egyptian investor, you could have many facilities with good prices. And of course, when they work on the map and they see that some countries, they could have raw materials cheaper than anywhere else, they won't hesitate. But the only problem before was the security. And we are telling them, well, the president himself goes to these countries, it means it's secure. The president signs accords with these people, meaning that the government here is serious. We're not just giving them slogans. We are, the government, the public sector itself started working there. Means that the money of the country is going elsewhere to build and work. So we're encouraging them when giving them signs, positive signs. So it's all about the political idea inside Egypt. We have this vision in Egypt in the current administration of President Sisi that Africa is the future. Africa is a safe place to work with. We have many friends in there. They respect Egypt, they respect the president, and they're willing to work with us. So why face difficulties elsewhere when you can have all the facilities inside the continent?
The economy and the investment, they need security and peace and stability for the whole of the African continent. And we had some challenges during the tenure or the rule of the terrorist brotherhood organization in terms of keeping security and stability, which affected negatively the economy of Egypt for many years. And we managed to be eradicating terrorism here in the country. How can we be replicating the same experience, giving them the expertise regarding keeping peace, security and stability throughout the African continent, because we have a lot of terrorist organizations all over the continent?
The war against terror, the main point of it is intelligence services. When you have the info, you can dismantle all the terrorist organizations and work with the security services of of other countries. We have seen, unfortunately, Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab in Somalia, Boko Haram in Nigeria, Daesh in Libya. We have seen all of them all over Africa. And we have seen also the Western forces trying to make central commands to fight terrorism. It didn't achieve anything. So I think that it's all about the security levels. When you exchange the info, you exchange the expertise. We went, as you said, in fighting terrorism, went through a very difficult road in Sinai. We went through a very difficult task in the western borders with Libya. We had to fight the arms smuggling from Sudan, and also in the Mediterranean. We had this tremendous war. It was all about the info. When you have the info and the expertise, you can deal, because the war against terrorism is very special. It's not a traditional war. It's about info. It's about the techniques that we have. We had these techniques in Sinai. We achieved excellent results. We have secured our western borders with Daesh when it was in Libya, and we eradicated, we helped other countries to. By the way, we never intervened in other countries' securities. We give the info, we give the logistic aid, but we never send forces, we never do anything against other countries. We don't violate any sovereignty.
Yes. On the other hand, one of the main topics that is challenging for the whole of the African continent is climate change, as we have hosted here in Egypt and Sharm el-Sheikh in past November, the COP27. How do you think this could be affecting the whole of the African continent? Because this was one of the main topics that President Sisi tackled during his African tour.
Well, it's the agriculture, of course. The continent is highly depending on agriculture, fruits like the mangoes and other fruits from this continent, which is the richest to other markets in Europe. So I think that climate change has an impact on on these products. We have to work together to protect it by other projects, because there are projects which could really help to protect the fruits and all these agriculture projects. We in Egypt, we have also the irrigation system that we have renewing, and we helped other countries to do it. So and we are using the solar system, which is very important. It's a clean energy. So we are giving also this example. So I think it will help us a lot to work together to adapting with the climate change.
Yes, Doctor, heading to the other report of the daily debate for tonight, and it comes through the presidential activities of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Over the past week and during the African tour, President al-Sisi participated in the 22nd summit of the Common Market of the Eastern and Southern Africa, the COMESA summit for the heads of states and governments. We'll be having more details regarding this summit in the upcoming report, so stay tuned.
President Fattah al-Sisi urged member states of the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa (COMESA) to exert more efforts to achieve regional integration in order to address current challenges. Egypt takes over presidency of new Partnership for Africa's Development Agency until 2025. President al-Sisi's speech came during the 22nd COMESA Heads of State and Government Summit in the Zambian capital Lusaka, held on Thursday. Egypt handed over the two-year presidency of the continental 21-member state bloc to Zambia. President al-Sisi said it was a great honor for Egypt to take over the leadership of the COMESA over the past 2 years, during a very delicate period of time that witnessed important developments at international and regional levels. Sisi expressed his confidence that the Zambian president would do all he can to build on the achievements of the Egyptian chairmanship. President also highlighted Egypt's priorities during its chairmanship, which focused on advancing economic integration rates to enhance the level of well-being of our people and promote capabilities of peace and security in the African continent. He also commended the role of the COMESA Regional Investment Agency, which is based in Cairo. The President also indicated that Egypt, in its capacity as COMESA chair, has focused on activating the African Continental Free Trade Area to boost economic growth, adding that the volume of trade exchange between Egypt and COMESA countries reached $4.3 billion in 2022. Furthermore, President al-Sisi stated that Egypt also focused on the infrastructure sector by encouraging interconnection projects between member states. He cited the hydroelectric power projects constructed by Egyptian and Tanzanian hands. Moreover, he referred to the interconnection project of naval route between Lake Victoria and Mediterranean Sea. The theme of the 22nd summit is economic integration for thriving COMESA, anchored on green investment, value addition, and tourism. The summit aims to promote development, economic and trade integration among COMESA member states. On the latest developments in Sudanese crisis, President Sisi asserted that the member states must consolidate to support Sudan's people. He stressed in his speech that we are facing magnitude of challenges that impose on sustainability, peace and security in our countries. In May, Egypt became the largest host of Sudanese refugees after allowing 164,000 Sudanese individuals to enter. The president stated that Egypt has engaged with all existing mechanisms and international partners to bring security and stability to Sudan, asserting that world countries must respect African nations' right to life. At the end of his speech, President reiterated that Egypt would spare no effort in pushing African states towards development and fulfilling its role as the head of the post-conflict reconstruction and development file in the African Union.
Welcome back. You're still watching the Daily Debate. Dr. Sherif, Amer, how do you see the importance, as we have seen in the past report, the importance and the significance of the visit by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to Zambia in specific, and of course participating as the head or the former head of the COMESA and turning the chairmanship to Zambia?
Well, it means that Egypt is taking highly these organizations. These are not organizations that we are just participating in. Yes. When the president himself goes by him as a chairman of the COMESA and giving the new presidentship to Zambia, it's very honoring. He's telling to the African world that this is important for all of us. These are not just meetings and conferences that we can send delegations. No, we are present as the EU has its own conferences. Why not we have this? Why we have always this regard that we are weaker than other continents? Yes. That's not true. We could have economic collaboration. And of course, many countries, when they see that the president of Egypt himself is going there, they will think about the importance of this organization. They will go and see why Egypt is interested. Maybe we can make business with Egypt. And so it's very encouraging for everyone. If the president doesn't go by himself, well, I think that many countries won't look at this organization highly. So it's about economy, it's about cooperation, and it's also about our agriculture security. We have seen in the war between Russia and Ukraine, the cereals, the grains, how there were the problems, how we will feed Africa. Yes. There were many question marks. I think that the president wants to end this dependence of outside elementary, or let's say agriculture products. Why we don't have our own agriculture products? Why we're waiting for the ports in the Black Sea, far away from Africa, to deliver us the ships and the cargoes? Why don't we work within our continent and make our own riches and our own food? So this is very strategic.
How can we be diversifying the fields of cooperation, more specifically the economic cooperation? Because you mentioned, Doctor, that Africa is very rich, Egypt is very rich in resources. How can we be diversifying the fields of cooperation, as we can see other countries from different parts of the world doing so?
The first thing is the expertise, of course. We see, for example, many African countries who had the agriculture system, and we have also our agriculture system. Why we don't exchange how to make more fertile lands, how to introduce new agriculture products within our systems. Now in the agricultural world, nothing is impossible. You can cultivate anything, anywhere, if you create an artificial environment for it. So it's easy to do it. So why we don't see new products that we're buying from the EU, we're buying from other countries with higher prices? And let's not forget also exportation. We have tremendous conditions, very heavy conditions from our partners in the EU for exporting our products. And sometimes it's politically diverted when they're not happy really with Egypt's independent policies. They strengthen these conditions. Well, let's be independent also by working with our African countries.
Yes.
We can export freely and import their products. So it's very important. It will save also foreign currency. So I think that there are numerous ways of dealing with that, but it always depends on the leadership of the countries. This is what the president is telling his counterparts. You have to take care of your own security, economic security, because this is the future.
Yes, Egypt was the former head of the COMESA before turning the presidency to Zambia over the past week. How do you see the achievements over the past 2 years regarding the COMESA in terms of the economy for the benefit of the whole of Africa?
Well, it helped the economic security of this continent during the COVID, for example. When everything was closed, the markets were closed, we have exchanged a lot with our partners in Africa. The COMESA was working hardly, maybe in bilateral relations with every country, but it helped as an organization to keep the relations between the countries. When the presidents of each country meet in such an organization, they know that they are bound to accords, they know that they have agreements, they know that they could share new expertise and new opportunities. So the COMESA is very important in keeping this liaison between all these countries.
The African Continental Free Trade Area, a main topic that President Assisi always speaks about, and we have seen His Excellency mentioning it once again during the 22nd Summit for the COMESA in the past week. How do you think we could be activating such an important institution?
Of course, many foreign countries, outside countries, didn't wish to see that, so that the continent will be always dependent on the outside forces. But of course, the president has the evaluation and the estimation that things are changing around the world. Europe is not that open like it was before. The Russians are present in the continent, so as the Chinese and the Indians. So look, for instance, the BRICS, many African countries, and South Africa is part of it. Egypt is a candidate now. So why not join other regional forces and ensure that we could have this independent vision of economy separately from the Western Hemisphere?
And of course, we have seen during the 22nd Summit of the COMESA as well, President Assisi mentioning that we are a candidate for the African Peace and Security Council for 2024 till 2026. What is the importance of being a part of this council?
Well, it's important to show that we are still in the African camp. We are working with everyone on every level, whether security and military conflicts, or the economy, or the educational system. We are working in the continent now is complementary. We are working together to build a new economy, a new generation of cooperation. I think it will take time, but it always takes willingness. We have to be ensuring that they listen and they see by their own eyes projects on the ground.
And of course, the final leg of the African tour, the historic African tour, was getting President Assisi to Mozambique. And how do you see the relations, the bilateral relations between both countries? Because one of the main topics that were tackled during this visit is strengthening the bilateral ties between Egypt and Mozambique. How can this be done?
Well, Mozambique went also through difficult times, and it had, unfortunately, some terrorist groups who were planted there, trying to create a new haven there for like Boko Haram and like Al-Shabaab in Somalia and Al-Qaeda in Mali. So I think that we're giving them the expertise, how to defend themselves, how to secure their internal affairs. And I think that we will see other visits from the president of Mozambique to Egypt in the coming future.
Yes, and finally, to wrap up, how do you see the Egyptian foreign policy in general and towards Africa in specific?
The Egyptian foreign policy is about sovereignty, our red line. We went through extreme difficult pressure to put aside our sovereignty and our integrity in a way, but the president is very clear. President Sisi said from the first day that Egypt is the top priority. We don't aggress anyone, we have no intentions to harm anyone, but we will do our maximum to defend our sovereignty. And with Africa, we call them our brothers. We are willing to work with them, and we are very optimistic about the riches. We are a rich country, we're a rich continent, and we will do very good if we work with each other and also with other partners outside the continent.
Yes, Dr. Sherif Amer, the Professor of Geopolitical Affairs and the International Relations. Thank you very much for being with us tonight on the Daily Debate.
Thank you.
Anytime. And this brings us to the end of the Daily Debate for tonight. Thank you for watching and goodbye.